Deputy John Curran, 30 seconds.
Look, Minister, the illegal and dangerous use of quads and scramblers in our parks, open areas and housing estates continues to be a problem. I want to acknowledge in this question that you're the first and only minister that I have seen in the lifetime of this Dáil to address the issue in a serious manner by organising an interdepartmental and cross-agency approach to dealing with this issue. My question to you today is, can you update the House on the progress that interdepartmental cross-agency approach is having and the progress being made?
I want to acknowledge the continued interest in Deputy John Curran on this issue. In fact, he was the first deputy to raise this with me, and he never loses an opportunity to continue to raise what is an important issue to him and indeed to many other deputies and indeed to myself. The public safety concerns that is affecting a large number of local communities. That is the issue of quad bikes and scramblers and their illegal use. I asked my officials to convene a cross-agency consultation to ascertain whether there are additional legislative or other solutions which can assist in dealing with the misuse of these vehicles from a comprehensive perspective. I think it's important that we determine responsibility and, of course, that we have timeframes for the implementations of any solutions that might be identified. The process began in April, involved at the Department of Justice, obviously, at the Department of Transport, Tourism and Sport, Housing, Planning and Environment, Culture, Heritage and Gaeltacht, Garda Síochána, the Road Safety Authority, the Revenue Commissioners and representatives from across local authorities. The misuse of scramblers in public parks was a particular point of focus for these consultations. Indeed, following this engagement, a number of relevant pieces of legislation were brought to the attention of the Office of the AG to determine whether any legislative amendments were necessary to assist in curbing activity insofar as scramblers and quad bikes are concerned, without giving rise to maybe any unintended consequences in respect of the lawful use of scramblers and quads. My department has now received formal legal advice from the Office of the Attorney-General. The advice is comprehensive in nature. It's now being carefully considered by my officials together with officials in the Department of Transport, Tourism and Sport in the context of its responsibility for road traffic legislation. But it will be necessary to consult again with other government departments and public bodies via the cross-agency forum. A further meeting will take place this week.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Curran.
Thank you, Minister, for your reply. I recently met a former deputy of this House and a colleague of John Lahart's, Deputy Lahart's, Councillor O'Connor from Tallaght, who told me of the issues they're facing in Kingswood. I've spoken with a colleague in relation to the same issue, Councillor McAuliffe in Ballymun. It's not first and foremost a problem that's particular to any one area. It is widespread right across Dublin and I suspect other parts of the country as well. And often in the debate, Minister, the concern I have is that we talk about our parks and open places. But the reality is, in many of the areas, and when you talk to our councillors and my own experience, it's also happening on public roads, in our own housing estates throughout the constituency. People are afraid, elderly people are afraid to go out of their houses when these quads and scramblers are on the roads. They're afraid to let their children out. And while a lot of the debate, and certainly during the summer we had a very tragic case in one of our parks where a person was hit, a lot of the focus has been on the parks, but it is of equal disruption, equal nuisance and danger to people in their own houses and their own housing estates.
Thank you. Minister.
Well, I'm acutely aware of the case of Ilabak of Etienne, and I want to extend my sympathies to his wife, Anzela, and indeed to her and her husband's families. The tragic incident all too sadly highlights how the misuse of scramblers and quad bikes can cause real damage, not only for the person who's been seriously injured, but for the family and indeed community. I want to assure Deputy Curran that I'm committed to actively supporting any positive action in this regard. I have received the legal advice of the Attorney-General. I am committing that to some study. I'm also informed by the Department of Transport that they too are also engaged in seeing how best we can deal with this issue. I'm further informed that the use of quad bikes and scramblers in public parks, open spaces, is strictly prohibited by local authorities under the Parks and Open Spaces bylaws of 2011. And insofar as national parks are concerned, Minister Madigan does have legislative powers to prohibit the use of the unauthorised use of off-road vehicles there. So there is a cross-departmental remit here, but I'm very keen to continue to liaise with Deputy Curran and Deputy Lahart and former Deputy Charlie O'Connor, who I know has expressed an interest in this. It's complex, but that shouldn't mean that it isn't urgent and important.
Thank you, and I want to let Deputy Hart as well, but Deputy Curran first, because it's your question.
Thank you for your reply, Minister. This use of quads and scramblers is both dangerous and a nuisance and illegal. You're right in that. I attend the JPC regularly, where the Gardaí clearly indicate to us that the crux of the problem is they're not able to enforce road traffic laws. They are not physically in a position to stop the quads and scramblers. And whether on the roads or in the parks, the same physical challenges are there. It's both dangerous for themselves and those who are on the quads and scramblers. And that would make me think that we need to look at the issue slightly differently. We need to look at our rules and regulations and legislation in relation to the registration and ownership of these vehicles. But we also must have a look at how these vehicles, whether they're quads or scramblers, can be seized after an event on intelligence-led information, where Gardaí know who are using them, where everybody in a housing estate knows who are using them, that follow-up operations can take place without jeopardising and putting at risk the life and safety of either An Garda Síochána or those who are illegally using them.
Deputy Hart, a quick comment, because I know you're anxious on that issue as well.
I want to thank my colleague Deputy Curran for raising it, and the Minister for dealing with it. Just to add a couple of points, Deputy Curran mentioned Kingswood Estate in my constituency. That would be one of a number. Killinarden Estate, another, where quad bikes particularly and scramblers are used, and where one resident would have described it as 99% of the open spaces being destroyed in terms of public use by 1% of the local community. There is an issue, and it arose early in the new year last year in terms of the Lidl in Jobstown, where during the snow, the Gardaí had only one 4x4 vehicle. So Garda rocks up in a Ford Focus and there's someone on a scrambler or on a quad bike. They simply have no capacity to catch them. So there's a resource issue there as well. I welcome the information you've given us in relation to a cross-departmental approach, and in terms of the local authority being involved too. But I would say too, there needs to be a promotion of the availability of scrambling space. I mean, both our constituencies, Deputy Curran and I, are close to the mountains, close to the hills, where there are opportunities for legal scrambling and legal use of these, and local younger people should definitely be encouraged to move in that direction. But I thank the Minister for his continued interest in this.
Minister, you might keep your response as quickly as possible.
I don't want to be repetitive, Curran. In any event, you won't let me. But acknowledging the importance of the cross-departmental and agency group, I want to make one thing clear. And coming up to Christmas now, people will be buying quad bikes and scramblers as presents, and perhaps for themselves. But one thing is clear, and that is that these motorised vehicles are mechanically propelled vehicles within the meaning of the road traffic legislation. So as such, irrespective of the engine capacity, the user of a scrambler motorbike or quad bike or any similar type vehicle in a public place must have road tax, must have a policy of insurance, must have a driving licence, must wear a helmet, and there are severe penalties under the road traffic laws, including fixed charge notices, penalty points, fines, and possible seizures of the vehicles, as referred to by Deputy Curran. So I wish to assure you that under current law, that the Gardaí will make every effort to ensure that the law is firmly complied with. And in the meantime, the cross-departmental group is again meeting this week with a view towards dealing with this issue in an overall comprehensive way, which involves a number of agencies, a number of government departments, and I would be happy to keep the House further informed.
Now we'll move